In human history, there are stories that stretch the limits of belief. Tales where reality bends so close to the edge of impossible that even science struggles to explain them. But among all the survival stories ever recorded, this one stands alone. A true story. Documented. Verified. Not a myth. Not a rumor. Not an exaggeration. This is the story of the woman who fell 33,000 feet, almost the height of Mount Everest, without a parachute, and lived. Her name was Vesna Vulović, a 22-year-old Serbian flight attendant whose ordinary life turned into one of the greatest survival mysteries ever recorded. Today, you'll discover exactly what happened, minute by minute. The flight. The explosion. The fall. The science. The rescue. And the unanswered questions that experts still debate to this day. This is not just a story. It is a miracle wrapped in physics, fate, and human resilience. Belgrade, Yugoslavia, 1971. The world was different then. Air travel wasn't glamorous like the movies show, but for a young woman named Vesna, it represented something magical. She had grown up listening to stories of foreign places, wide oceans, and faraway cities she never believed she would see. She wanted to travel. She wanted to see the world. But she had no idea how. Until one afternoon, while walking past an airline office window, she stopped. There it was. A poster of a flight attendant smiling, standing beside a JT Yugoslav Airlines plane. And Vesna knew instantly, this was it. She applied the next day. There was just one problem. They rejected her. Not for lack of skill. Not for lack of confidence. But because of her blood pressure, too low, they said. A health risk. But fate, it seems, had other plans. A few weeks later, due to a clerical mistake, they mixed her up with another girl who had the same name. She was hired. And just like that, the girl who dreamed of seeing the sky now lived in it. Her friends described her as cheerful, adventurous, full of energy. Always smiling. No one could imagine that very soon, her name would become known around the world. The date was January 26, 1972. A cold winter afternoon. Flight JAT 367 was scheduled to fly from Stockholm, Copenhagen, Zagreb, Belgrade. Vesna was assigned to this flight at the last minute, a shift swap with another attendant. She almost didn't go. But once again, fate nudged her in a direction she could not see. The aircraft was a McDonnell Douglas DC-9. Reliable. Trusted. Nothing unusual. The passengers boarded calmly. Captain and crew performed their standard checks. Everything was normal. The first leg of the flight, Stockholm to Copenhagen, was uneventful. Passengers disembarked, new ones boarded, and the cabin crew prepared for the short 16-minute flight to Zagreb. 22-year-old Vesna stood by the galley, straightening her uniform, chatting with the crew, unaware that in the next few minutes her life would be divided into before and after. At 4:01 p.m., the plane took off from Copenhagen Airport. Weather. Cold. Clear. Smooth visibility. The plane climbed. 10,000 feet. 20,000 feet. 30,000 feet. At 33,000 feet, cruising altitude, everything was calm. Passengers relaxed. The cabin was quiet. There was no warning. No turbulence. No alarm. To Vesna, everything looked exactly as it always did at that height. And then, 4:01 p.m., somewhere over Czechoslovakia. Without warning. Boom. A violent, tearing blast ripped through the fuselage. Not a small explosion. Not turbulence. But an instantaneous rupture, a bomb detonating in the luggage compartment. Experts later determined it was likely placed by a terrorist group. The explosion tore the aircraft apart in fractions of a second. Inside the cabin, chaos erupted. Pressure dropped instantly to near zero. Temperatures plummeted. The roaring wind drowned every sound. Passengers were sucked toward the opening. The aircraft broke apart in midair. Most people died instantly, from the blast or from sudden decompression. But Vesna? She was in the rear galley. A food cart had pinned her down, holding her in a small enclosed section of the plane, possibly the only reason she didn't get ejected into open sky. And then, the entire tail section, with Vesna inside, detached and began to fall. Imagine this. You're 22 years old. You're inside a shattered piece of aircraft. And the Earth is 3 times higher than Mount Everest below you. The fall began violently, the tail spinning, flipping, plummeting. But this is where science meets mystery. Because normally at that altitude, no one survives. Human body impact at terminal velocity is fatal. The cold alone, minus 60 degrees, is unsurvivable. The pressure change can destroy organs. But Vesna lost consciousness almost immediately, likely due to lack of oxygen, and her limp body did not fight the fall. This helped her survive. The tail section also acted like a crude parachute, not enough to stop the fall, but enough to slow it, slightly. Then came another twist of fate. Below the aircraft was a thick forest covered in heavy snow. And deeper below that, a hill with a steep slope. Instead of hitting flat ground, the tail section smashed into the snow-covered slope at an angle, sliding downward, absorbing some of the impact. Still devastating. Still impossible. But survivable, by a thread. The tail crumpled. Metal screamed. Trees shattered. And inside that wreckage, somehow, Vesna was still alive. Hours passed. Silence. Cold. Darkness. Vesna remained unconscious, buried in twisted metal. Bleeding. Bones shattered. Legs broken. Skull fractured. A nearly severed spine. Then footsteps. A local villager named Bruno Honky, a former World War II medic, heard the crash. He climbed toward the wreckage, thinking he might find bodies. Instead, he heard a sound. A faint voice. A moan. He dug through the wreckage and froze. There's someone alive! He found Vesna collapsed among debris, her uniform soaked in blood, her legs bent unnaturally, her hair frozen into the metal. She had a 102 degrees Celsius body temperature due to internal bleeding, ironically saving her from freezing to death. Bruno carried her out. He later said she was so cold and stiff he thought she was already dead until she moved slightly. He bandaged her, kept her warm, and rushed her to the hospital. But even then, doctors believed she would die within hours. Her injuries were catastrophic. Fractured skull, 2 broken legs, 3 broken vertebrae, pelvis crushed, ribs shattered, temporary paralysis, massive internal bleeding. And yet, Vesna woke up from her coma 10 days later. She couldn't remember the crash. She thought she was still working. She asked why she was in a hospital bed. Doctors called her survival. Medically impossible. Newspapers called her the miracle girl. Experts said statistically, physically, humanly, she shouldn't be alive. But Vesna began recovering. Slowly, painfully, but surprisingly. Within months, she started walking again. And within a year, she regained almost all mobility. Guinness World Records officially recognized her as the person who survived the highest fall without a parachute. For decades, scientists studied her case. Here's what actually happened. 1. She was trapped in a small enclosed section. This prevented her from being sucked out into open air. 2. Her body was unconscious and limp. A relaxed body absorbs impact far better than a tense one. 3. The tail section fell at a slightly reduced speed. It created drag, slowing the descent just enough. 4. The terrain acted like a cushion. A snowy, forested slope dissipated impact energy. 5. Internal bleeding increased her body temperature, preventing fatal hypothermia. Each factor alone wouldn't save a person. But combined, they created a rare, almost impossible sequence that allowed one human being to survive something no one else has. Scientists called it a chain of improbable survivability. Years later, questions emerged. Some investigators believed the plane exploded in midair. Others suspected military involvement. Some said the altitude might have been lower. But flight recordings, debris distribution, and eyewitness accounts all confirmed. The plane was at full cruising altitude, and Vesna fell the full distance. No dispute remains among modern aviation historians. The fall happened. The survival happened. What remains is only the mystery of how one single human being lived through it. After recovering, Vesna tried to return to her old life. She asked to fly again. JT Airlines, terrified of the publicity risk, refused. She was given a desk job instead. She became a national hero. She appeared on television. She shook hands with presidents. She received the Guinness Award. But she never saw herself as special. She once said, "I'm not a hero. I'm just a girl who went to work one day." But the truth is, her story became a symbol of human resilience, survival, and the unpredictable twists of fate. She passed away peacefully in 2016, at age 66. Not from the fall. Not from her injuries. But simply in her sleep, after living a full life. Why her? Why did one woman survive a fall from the edge of the stratosphere when no one else in history ever has? Science can explain parts. Probability can calculate odds. Physics can outline forces. But none of them can fully solve the mystery. Because the truth is, no survivor in recorded history has ever come close to what Vesna lived through. 33,000 feet. A plane explosion. A mid-air breakup. A free fall through open sky. An impact that should have killed her instantly. And yet, she didn't just survive. She stood again. Walked again. Lived again. In a world filled with fiction, conspiracy, and exaggeration. This story remains one of the rare ones that needs no embellishment. The facts alone are unbelievable enough. A young flight attendant. A routine flight. A mid-air explosion. A 33,000-foot fall. A survival that shouldn't be possible. But it happened. It is documented. It is real. And today, you've heard the full story, not of a myth. Not of a miracle. But of a human being who defied the very laws of nature. Her name was Vesna Vulović. And she holds a record that no one will ever break.